Hi guys, so today is Christmas Eve, which is crazy. This year's gone so quick. I'm trying to get into my routine of filming weekly videos, and I really like the setup that I have in my living room. I'm just sitting on the floor next to the couch. I don't know why, it's just comfy. It's nice and bright in my flat in this angle. You've got my bookshelves behind me. Um, but yeah, I'm just enjoying the routine of it, to be honest. Um, so because I work in school, it's been school holidays, so I've had about 10 days. Well, I've had about a week off, 8 days so far, and then I've got this week off as well before we go back on January 3rd. Um, so you know that time between like Christmas and New Year's, that week always seems to be like go on forever for some reason. That's in my mind anyway. It always has. Um, but yeah, so I'm going to try and use 2023 as my tester year for getting more booktube videos out there. So my booktube channel I've had for years, um, but it's always kind of like gone on towards the writing side of things, which will very much stay the same. I will keep doing writing vlogs and talking about my books just as much as I normally do, but I'm just going to try and do more um, book reviews and book haul videos and like what I've read this month videos and things like that, because I want to try and get more of a schedule done, so that I can talk about books. So I thought a good way to start that off was to do my books of 2022 video. So I have a notebook full of all the books that I've read this year, going down my Goodreads list. They are in chronological order, and yes, maybe you get some recommendations for 2023 yourself if you haven't read them already, or if you have read them, then let me know what you think of them down below. We can have a chat. Yeah, let's get into it. So on my Goodreads challenge this year, for somehow I managed to get 25 books read this year. Maybe 24 because it also includes my book rating. So 24 books this year. And I've mentioned them all in my little notebook. So I'm going to be talking about them as I go. Um, I've never actually completed my Goodreads challenge before, so this will be the first time. I always set it for 20 books a year because I'm not a very fast reader, and um, yeah. So how this year I managed to get more than I normally do, and but I think a lot of that is because I have quite a long bus journey in the morning to work now, so that definitely helps. Like having that reading time on the bus, and also just a lot more making more time for reading, in between, things like that. So the first one was Torn by Jasmine Watson. Now this author is someone that I've been seeing a lot of stuff on TikTok. I am on BookTok. April Grace author is my username if you want to check it out. And there's a couple of these authors that I have seen their books or seen them advertising their books and I've gone, oh, that looks interesting. That cover's nice. I'll check out the book and then it's really good. So the first one is Torn. Now this is kind of like quite a small book. The second book just came out, I think, recently, of the last couple of months. Um, I think the second one's called Girl on Fire, but the first one is Torn, and Torn is the name of the villain, I believe, because it's kind of like a fairy tale based world. So it's like you've got the above and the below, I think, and then you've got like the in between. So like the main character's like fairy tale esque. I thought it was an interesting take on a world based on fairy tales, and with like fairy tale characters included. But yeah, I thought it was a bit slow and it was a bit um, at times it felt like that wasn't a lot of stuff really going on. So that's probably the reason I gave it 3 stars. I think. But it's definitely worth a read. Like it's got some really good characters in it. The world is unique and interesting, and yeah, my your view might be completely different, and I'm yet to read the second book, so I will be reading that one very soon. The next one is Girl Serpent Thorn by Melissa Bashar I probably am pronouncing that wrong, but really good, really interesting book. Kind of has a lot of mythology behind it. I don't know much about the mythology, but I thought the world itself gave a lot of like Jasmine and Aladdin vibes. And I know they're based on a lot of quite interesting world building and mythology, so definitely worth a try. But yes, I absolutely love this book. I just remember reading it and I was just hooked on it, and I was constantly reading it in my lunch breaks, between going to places. I couldn't get enough of reading this book. I loved so the main idea was that the main character has skin that you cannot touch. So she's like set in this big tower inside the palace. She's a princess. Um, she's loved by her family, but she's basically seen as an outcast, and she's forced to hide because she's dangerous and she's cursed. And I love the fact that you learn a lot more about all of the curse as you go along, and there are like secrets in the family and things like that to keep you reading. Um, yeah, so definitely a worth giving that one a read. I gave it 5 stars because I loved it so much, and the cover is beautiful as well. Um, yeah, so there's also a big demon king that wants to use her for her powers, and yeah, if you love anything like that, give it a try. If you like mythology or books that are based on mythology or even just inspired by mythology, that one is definitely worth a try. I was drawn by the cover, but I loved the story as well. Next one is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab, a very, very well known author, and this is quite a very well known book as well. There's a lot of the ones, one of the big ones that's talked about a lot from her. One of her newer books, I think, but really, really good. Um, it was like a beautiful story about this girl who ends up, you kind of like go back in time because you realize that she's not really dying. She's living for a very, very long time. I think the idea is that she is kind of gets eternal life, but no one remembers her. That's the curse. Anyone she meets or sees or talks to, no one will even remember her. She'll just be forgotten about straight away, and that's the curse. And so you learn about her past life in France, which is really beautifully written. And then you'll learn about her family and the curses that happened and how she became this cursed person. And then you also meet, I think his name's Henry. I could be wrong, but I think it's Henry, who is also cursed, but she doesn't necessarily know that straight away. And you sort of like learn that when you get his POV in there as well. Um, so he's also cursed, but for in a different way. Um, and basically she meets him in a bookshop, and then he remembers her and continues to remember her. So um, they end up meeting up, and they start falling for each other, and it's just really sweet. It's really beautiful, but really sad at the same time because of his curse. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to give spoilers, but just yeah, it's put across really, really well, and it definitely shapes like their love story, which is really, really nice to see. Leave that one 5 stars. The next one that I want to talk about is The Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder. I thought this was interesting. It was about a warrior and a treasure hunter and a sleeping prince, who's basically the twisted version of Sleeping Beauty. Um, and I think they're trying to save him, but they're also trying to find these treasures. So it's really good if you like warriors and like the dialogue, and there's a lot of like complicated X's in the background for two of those characters as well. Um, and then you've got the sleeping prince, who's kind of like he's appearing to them through his dreams. And some of the characters like struggle with that. Um, I did find it quite a slow read. That was just me personally, but so I think that's the reason I gave it 3 stars. But it is a good story. Like, it's really interesting world building. There's a lot to like about it. Um, a lot of the times I give things lower ratings. It's not really like, it doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the book. It's just that not quite as good as I would have normally like loved something else, like giving it 5 stars. Um, but yeah, definitely check that one out if you like anything to do with fairy tales or fairy tale themed worlds. It's definitely a big fantasy world, and give that one a try. Got Better Together by Christine Riccio. She is a massive booktuber that I've been watching for apps for years. And I'd read her book Again But Better, and that one was really, really well written. I really enjoyed it. This one, just as good. Like, it's really funny. So I don't really read much contemporary or YA contemporary because I'm definitely a big fantasy fan. But because I'd read her previous book, and her previous book had like supernatural elements to it or fantastical elements. So I decided to give it a try, but I really enjoyed it. So it's a bit of a Freaky Friday, but it's also Parent Trap. So basically, these two characters end up meeting on this like American summer camp type thing, and they become really good friends. But then they start to realize that they're actually very very similar, and there's more going on to the story, and then they end up basically coming across this magical thing that helps them to change into each other. So it's basically as Parent Trap and Freaky Friday, and then they swap lives for a while, and then one of them's a comedian, I think, and one of them, I've forgotten what her. It was a while ago I read it, but one of her, yeah. Um, But yeah, so they swap lives, and then you've got to work out like what's going on with their. I think she's a dancer actually, but she has a really bad like back injury, which has stopped her from dancing. So two different characters, but it's really interesting to see how they work in each other's worlds and so on. So really, really good. Definitely, I want to try. So I thought it was just really funny. The writing style is just hilarious. But yeah, really good. 5 stars. Then you've got The High Mountain Court by A.K. Mulford, another big TikTok star that I'd seen, and a TikTok friend, and she's got a really big series. It's 5 books, I think, and I think they're all slightly different storylines. Like they're not a series, but they are connected. So this one is the first book in the series, and I do want to read the other books. She has had a massive HarperCollins deal come out from this as well, because her book just, I think it went viral and it just did really well, and she got a massive deal, and she's also got another series coming out from the same publisher, I think, which is pretty awesome. That's like living the dream, isn't it, as a indie author. So yeah, I gave this one 5 stars. So it's about a red witch, a young witch with dangerous abilities. She's like, basically they're like the outcasts of the world. All these different coloured witches have got different abilities or different types of magic that they do, and hers is the most dangerous. Won't give spoilers, but definitely a really really good adventure read. Because she goes off to look for these treasures. And there's a prince in there as well that she starts to fall for, and it's all just, yeah. If you like a good adventure book, give that one a try. And definitely worth a read. Next book that I want to talk about is Cryer's War by Nina Varela, and I gave this one 5 stars. This one was the one that was quite similar to my book, Still Princess, which you can probably see in the background. Um, Not in a lot of ways, but in the idea of that this is kind of like a futuristic world, but with magical stuff. Like Still Princess is, she is like a gynoid type esque robot type character princess, like Still Princess. Um, So the world building is very different to my book, but it's similar in that respect. Um, they don't really have like the magic like mine does. But you can't, sometimes when you're an author you can't help but compare your books to something that you're reading. It's not necessarily like they're exactly the same, they just feel similar, or you can just understand what the writer was maybe doing because your book's similar. But yeah, anyway, I really, really enjoyed this story, and I eventually read the sequel as well, which I'll talk about, I think, after this, on a few books down the list. Um, yeah, so it's about a girl called Cryer. She is the gynoid, and she feels like she's kind of like, she's in this world, and her father is the sovereign, and she feels very trapped, like she doesn't have a voice. And then you've got the other main character who's human, and a bit like in Still Princess, humans are seen as the lesser race and like the slaves. And I think her name's Isla. Um, her and Cryer meet and realise that they both want the same freedom for humans, because Cryer was built differently, so that she has like that soft heart kind of thing, a bit like Still Princess. Very similar in that respect as well. Um, But yeah, so she wants to like defy the world that she's in, and Isla wants the same thing, and she's rebelling because I think it was her mother's death. So she wants to kill Cryer actually as the main plot. But then they meet and things become different. But yeah, I gave this one 5 stars as well because I thought the world was just really unique. I loved the whole premise of the story. I loved the characters. I loved the relationships that they built up as they went along. And yeah, it just took me on a ride, and I loved it. So the next one was another TikTok star book. It's called From the Mouths of Sirens by Abigail Hare. She's also the one that designed my map for Still Princess. I gave this one 5 stars. So if you like the Hunger Games and you also like the Little Mermaid, those are two very good comparisons that go really well together for this book. It's kind of like a tournament, so you basically is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, not Sleeping Beauty, sorry, Little Mermaid. I was thinking of the other book that I was talking about. Um, yeah, so if you like the Little Mermaid and anything, you know, fairy tale based, definitely give that one a try. But it's also so she's basically Ariel, but her name's Saoirse, and she meets this prince with wings, and they're all forced to go into this magical tournament, um, which her father says that she's not allowed to go to, but she does it anyway because she's in a young adult fantasy book and she defies the rules. Um, and yeah, so she fights against it, and then she's got this magic, and they're in this massive, massive tournament. So if you like the Hunger Games and you like Little Mermaid, definitely check this one out. I gave it 5 stars. So the next book that I gave 5 stars was House of Lies and Sorrow by M.A. Blackwood, another TikTok book that I've seen, as are most of the books I think I've read on here. So it's a bit of a sort of, I think it's either new adult fantasy. I don't know if it's quite young adult, but it is good. Um, Kind of like a fae prince sort of type esque story, but which I seem to be really enjoying this year. I've got a few of those ones on my list. Um, so this young girl ends up finding this prince and finds herself forced to live in his palace, and the rest is history. They begin to fall in love. I gave it 5 stars. It's a very very little quick book, really enjoyable. I think the third book is coming out. I'm yet to read the second one, but really really enjoyed this. If you like anything to do with like fae stories and enemies to lovers type esque stories, not really got any smut or anything, but a good read overall. And main character is very feisty, and the prince is very charming, and yeah, the rest is history with those types of books. We have Ending in Cadence by Catherine Downen. I gave this 4 stars. Um, Really, really enjoyed it. Very unique world building for this one. So the idea is that um, you've got a few characters, and they all fall. One of them falls through a painting in his grandmother's house when they go looking after her death. Um, and they fall into this world. I think it's him and his sister and his sister's friend. I believe it was his sister that fell through before, and then he ends up finding her. Um, and they end up meeting this girl called Emma, and that lives in this world, and she's like an inventor, and this world is basically like a game in on Earth. Or no, I think it's the other way around. So in their world, Earth is like a game that they have to get to or get to reach to win the game. So it's not like seen as real. So Emma doesn't just thinks they're barking mad when they fall through from the sky and end up in this place. And then the idea is they all have to work together to save his sister, get her out, and all get back to Earth. And of course, the main character falls for the girl in the process. Um, yeah, so really, really unique world. I don't really know how to explain that one that much. I think it's worth giving it a read yourself if you like things like that. It's kind of like I think it's got futuristic element to it a little bit. I don't really. I think it gave me like, what's that, Wall-E Disney film. It gave me like that sort of feeling because they end up in like a big junkyard. But yeah, definitely worth a try. I gave it 4 stars. Then you've got The Princess Trials by Cordelia K. Castell, and I gave that one 5 stars. It's basically the Hunger Games and the Selection kind of like mixed together. Because it's similar to the Selection in the fact that there's a lot of different girls that are vying for this prince's hand, but it's also like it kind of becomes like a fight to the death type situation, but it's in a dystopian world. Um, I really, really enjoyed this one. I really, really enjoyed it. So definitely give it a try if you like anything like that. If you love the Selection and you love Hunger Games and you love things that are a bit darker than the Selection, but really, really worth a read. Sorry. The next one was Discovering Pericordis by Roxy Eloise. This is actually one of my author friends that wrote this book, and I gave it 5 stars, not just because she's my friend that wrote it, but I really enjoyed it. It's got a dystopian sort of feeling to it, um, and magic as well. So it's like young adult, um, about this girl called Aurora. She grows up in this institution for orphans. They're basically put into this place and have to become like massive, basically like police officers, or they're called enforcers, to protect this old man, basically in his institution. They're trained to protect him and his people. Um, really, really good. The idea is that they're not allowed to like do basically anything. They have to get married by a certain age, but they're not allowed to have sex or anything of that sort um, until they are married, I believe. But really, really good. But they're not allowed to be married until the end of their education, and their education goes on for a certain amount of time. Um, but yeah, if you like dystopian sorts of books, definitely worth that. Give that one a try. It's got a love triangle. Um, yeah, really, really good. And the next one was Twin Crowns by Catherine Doyle and Catherine Webber. I also gave this one 5 stars. If you love Snow White or anything fairy tale based, give this book a read because I absolutely loved it. Um, it gave me Snow White sort of vibe, but I am in the process of editing a Snow White retelling at the moment. And it did remind me of the feeling that I get from editing my own book. Um, Definitely worth giving that one a go if you like anything. So you've got two twin princesses basically. One that doesn't necessarily one that was been raised by witches, so she has magic, and then the other one is the princess in the palace that's waiting for her chance to become the queen, but I think she has to learn a certain amount first. But then you've got this sister that wants to come in, and you'll see it in the first chapter anyway, so it's not really a spoiler. But um, this sister comes in, swoops her sister away, and takes her place because they look the same. Um, Really, really well done. And then it's like you see this witch princess, the sister, growing up, and the other one doesn't know she's got a twin sister, and it's just yeah, it's really, really, really good. A bit of Freaky Friday, I suppose, like the other books. And the next one was Ironheart by Nina Varela. This is the sequel to Cryer's War, which I was talking about earlier, and I also gave this one 5 stars. Very similar in the fact of the world building from the first book, but it carries on um, in a different part of the world. So, and Cryer, who's the gynoid, has actually kind of run away from her wedding. She was supposed to marry the sovereign's like chosen person, the person that he chose to have her engaged to, but that doesn't really happen. So she runs away and then finds Isla, and then it's kind of like hers and Isla's like adventure book where they're both trying to get through surviving in this world and wanting to be together. And it is also a queer book, so if you like queer female romance, definitely give Cry as War and Ironheart a go, because it's really, really good sci-fi-esque story, but not more on the heavy on the fantasy book, a bit like Still Princess. The next one was Of Snow and Roses by T.M. Franklin. Very, very short, quick book about, it's a Snow White retelling, but it's more, feels a lot more modern. Um, really, really enjoyable read. I love the way she, with how the author brought up the idea of amnesia, because this character has no memories of where she came from before, but she has these magical abilities and a bear that keeps appearing where she is that comes to talk to her and things like that. So there is other stuff going on, and you can start to know. You start to tell what's happening, but yeah, you don't really know completely what the deal is. But it's really good, and it's the big reveal is just really interesting as well. The next one I rated 4 stars is The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen. That is the Bridge Kingdom sequel. I really enjoyed this book. I've enjoyed this series, to be honest. I think they're both really well done. I just love the uniqueness of the world building. I, I, I think it's quite a difficult one to explain, so I think if you just want to go give that one a read, especially if you have read the Bridge Kingdom, give the sequel a read, because it basically follows the same sort of lines, but more of the romance and everything that comes with that. So the next one was Bloodheart by Rachel Talk. I gave this 5 stars. This was actually an ARC book that I was given, and she also reviewed my book as well when it came out. Um, Definitely enemies to lovers romance with the Fae sort of themes again, but a really, really enjoyable read. Um, has a bit of a what I didn't realise what was two princesses, two no. Thank you for watching, guys, and I will try to do more videos like this. I do have a lot more reviews, book reviews to come on the channel, and I will try to do monthly videos as I read books in the new year, and try and get more of a schedule of that so it keeps happening, because I really enjoy making videos like this. And yeah, thank you for if you've watched that entire video, and thank you, and I will talk to you very soon.